My name is Ava Montgomery, and for most of my life, I believed that real love was something that quietly held a family together, even through the imperfect moments. I believed that loyalty was instinctive, that parents, no matter how flawed, would find their way back to fairness, to balance, to love all their children equally. But belief is fragile, and mine shattered the moment my parents chose my sister's wedding over mine. That decision did not just bruise me. It carved a line straight through my chest, a line that would eventually split my life into a before and an after. Before, the girl who tried to earn her parents' love. After, the woman who stopped begging for a place at the table and built her own table instead, overlooking the Tuscan hills, inside a $6 million villa I bought with my own hands. But if you think this is a story about money, it is not. It is a story about betrayal, about awakening, about the moment you realize the people you love most might be the ones holding the knife, and the strange, liberating peace that follows when you choose to walk away. Before I begin, if you have ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside by your own family, go ahead and tell me in the comments. I choose myself. Not for me, but for you. And if you enjoy powerful, emotional, real-life stories where betrayal turns into rebirth, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We share new stories every single week, and I promise each one reminds you of your worth. Now, let me take you back to the moment everything changed. I grew up in a small town outside Portland, Oregon, the second daughter in a family that liked to pretend we were close. My sister, Madeline, was the golden child, brilliant, glamorous, loud in the way people celebrate.
She was a storm you saw coming.
I was the quiet one, steady, focused, the girl who built things. I built my career, my relationships, my home, my peace. Nothing came easy, and maybe that is why I cherished everything I earned. By 32, I had founded a luxury interior design studio that took off far beyond my expectations. I had clients in Europe, Asia, and the East Coast. I traveled constantly. I bought a villa in Tuscany simply because it made my soul feel full, sun spilling across stone, vines brushing the balcony, the silence of a life finally my own. But none of that mattered to my parents. Success, to them, was not an achievement. It was an excuse. You do not need help, my mother would say. You have money.
Or,
we do not worry about you, Ava. You always land on your feet. What they meant was, you can take care of yourself. So, we will give everything to the one who cannot. And the one who could not was always Madeline. Still, I loved my family. I loved them enough to believe that when it came to the biggest moment of my life, they would show up. I met Ethan in Florence while designing a boutique hotel. He was gentle, intelligent, a man who knew who he was and did not need to be louder than the room to prove it. With him, I finally felt safe. I felt chosen. When he proposed on the balcony of the villa during sunset, my first thought was simple. I cannot wait to tell my parents. I imagined my mother crying, my father hugging me, my sister teasing me, but eventually pulling me close. None of that happened. What happened instead still feels like a bruise when I think about it. I called my parents the morning after the proposal. My voice was shaking with excitement. Mom, Dad, Ethan and I are getting married. There was a pause, one of those pauses that should be full of joy, but instead swallowed the air. My mother finally exhaled. Oh, sweetheart, that is wonderful.
truly.
But your sister, well, she has news too. Madeline grabbed the phone, breathless. I am getting married too. Her fiancé had proposed that same weekend. My mother later joked it was sister telepathy. But I did not laugh. We congratulated each other, and for a moment, I believed everything would be fine. 2 weddings. 2 celebrations. A year full of joy. But it was not joy that followed. It was comparison. Then competition. Then dismissal. And finally something worse. Something irreparable. 2 weeks later, my parents asked if we could all meet at their house. I baked lemon bars, my dad's favorite, and drove over with a heart full of hope, the way only a daughter still trying to be loved can hope. We sat in the living room. My mother smoothed her skirt, My father cleared his throat, and my mother said it in the gentlest, cruelest voice imaginable. Honey, we need you to move your wedding date. I blinked. Move it?
Why?
Well, she folded her hands. Madeline has chosen June 15th. It is the date she always dreamed of. You understand. I did not. Ethan and I had already chosen June 15th too. Not because it was symbolic, but because it was the only date when our families, friends, and the venue were all available. But we picked that date first, I said softly. My father gave me a look, the same look he used when I was 8, and asking for something unreasonable. Ava, your sister's wedding is complicated. She needs more support.
You know how she is.
I knew exactly how she was, but I also knew how I was. Invisible to them. So you want me to move my wedding for hers? I whispered. To keep the peace, my mother said. As the older sister, she should not have to adjust. I am the younger sister, I reminded her. My mother waved a hand. Well, you know what I mean.
I did.
I always knew what she meant. I was the one expected to bend so the family would not break. But families do not break because one daughter finally stands up. They break because they expect her not to. I drove home from my parents' house that evening in complete silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. The lemon bars I had brought were still on the back seat, untouched. My father had said he was cutting back on sweets, but I knew the truth.
They simply did not want anything from me that day.
Their minds were already wrapped around my sister's wedding, the flowers, the seating chart, the music, the bridal shower themes. The moment Madeline announced her engagement, it was as if the entire household shifted its gravity and revolved around her again, exactly the way it had when we were children. But still I tried, because daughters like me always try a little too hard. When I walked through the door of my apartment, Ethan looked up from the kitchen counter with a hopeful smile. So, how did it go? I swallowed the lump in my throat. They want us to move the wedding date. His smile faded. Why? Because Madeline picked the same day. And apparently, she needs more support. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice gentle. And what do you need, Ava? No one had ever asked me that before. I felt something inside my chest crack quietly, like the sound of a small branch breaking under snow. I need my parents to show up for me, I whispered. Just once. Ethan took my hands. We will figure this out together. Whatever you want to do, I am with you. For a while, I believed that would be enough. Over the next month, the wedding planning became a battlefield. Madeline called constantly, always with a tone dipped in false sympathy. Oh my God, Ava, I did not know you wanted June 15th. But it is kind of my number, you know? I have always talked about that date. She had not. But everyone acted as if she had been born with a prophecy carved into her birth certificate. Then came the first real punch. One afternoon, I received a long message in the family group chat. We think it would be best if you chose a smaller venue, Ava. It will make the schedule easier, and we want to give Madeline the full support she deserves.
Smaller venue.
Smaller wedding.
Smaller me.
I typed out a response, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. I wanted to scream, but I had spent my entire life learning how not to. When I finally replied, all I wrote was, understood. Those 9 letters cost me more than I could explain. Weeks passed and the imbalance grew. My parents attended every tasting, every fitting, every planning session for Madeline. They posted photos. They gushed online. They made family dinners about her wedding and acted surprised when I fell quiet. Do not be sensitive, my mother scolded once. This is just a busy time. It is a busy time for me too, I said. She gave me that gentle smile, the one that felt like silk wrapped around a blade. Oh, honey, it is not the same. And there it was. The truth laid bare. My wedding did not matter. Not because it was smaller. Not because it was poorly planned. But because I was the one having it. One evening, while visiting my parents, my mother motioned for me to sit beside her in the living room. She reached for my hand in a way that almost convinced me she was about to apologize. Instead, she said, We think it is best if you postpone your wedding entirely, at least until after Madeline's honeymoon. There is too much happening, and we do not want to overwhelm the family. I pull my hand back. You do not want to overwhelm the family, I repeated. By having both your daughters get married? It is not that, my father said from the doorway. It is just, Madeline's marriage is a little more fragile. She needs the attention. And mine does not? I asked. No answer. Not even a breath. That silence was the moment I finally saw the truth without the veil I had been holding. My parents had never really been proud of me. They had been relieved by me. Relieved that I handled my own life. Relieved that I never asked for help. Relieved that loving me did not require effort. They were not choosing my sister's wedding over mine. They were choosing the easier daughter, the one who demanded, cried, expected, and needed. I was the daughter who survived without them. And they mistook that for not needing love. That night, I packed a suitcase and booked a flight to Florence. When Ethan asked what I was doing, I told him the truth. I cannot stay here and watch them pretend I do not matter. He nodded. Then we will go to Tuscany and figure out what you want. No family. No pressure. Just you. The moment the plane landed in Florence, something inside me loosened like a breath I had been holding for 30 years. The air smelled of citrus and old stone. The hills rolled like sleeping giants under the soft summer sky. When we reached the villa, sunlight spilled across the walls, turning them golden. Here, I was not the forgotten daughter. Here, I was simply Ava. We held each other on the balcony that night, and I felt clarity settle into me like warm light. We will get married here, I said. Ethan kissed my forehead. I would marry you anywhere. But Tuscany was mine. My parents did not know this place. They had never visited. They had never invested a single emotion into this corner of my life. It was untouched by their disappointment, uncontaminated by their favoritism. It was sacred. We chose a date 1 week before my sister's wedding. We invited only people who cherished us, people who celebrated us, without comparison. My closest friends flew in. Ethan's family arrived with open arms. Even colleagues who had watched me grow my company sent messages saying, I will be there. Just give me the address. For the first time, I felt chosen. I had not told my parents yet, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed space to stand in my truth without their shadow swallowing it. I knew they would find out eventually. I just did not expect it to happen the way it did. 3 days before the ceremony, I posted a single photo on my private Instagram. A shot of the villa bathed in sunset. No caption. No hint. Just beauty. 2 hours later, a text from my mother popped up. Ava, what is going on? Your sister is very stressed. Where are you? I did not reply, because for the first time in my life, I was not going to shrink so someone else could shine. I was done being the quiet daughter, the easy daughter, the daughter who gave up everything so her parents would not feel uncomfortable. This was my beginning, and it was about to be unforgettable. The morning of my wedding in Tuscany felt like something pulled from a dream I did not know I was brave enough to have. The air was cool, touched with lavender drifting in from the nearby fields. Sunlight fell in soft stripes across the courtyard's stone floor. There was no rush, no panic, no whispered comparisons to my sister. Just peace. A peace I had earned, peace by wounded peace. Inside the villa, my friends moved around me quietly, their voices gentle, their laughter warm. The makeup artist worked with a softness that felt like a blessing rather than a performance. Every brushstroke whispered, "You matter. You are seen. You are loved." A string quartet practiced on the terrace, their music floating into the early morning air like drifting silk. Ethan's family bustled happily in the kitchen, preparing pastries they insisted were a tradition, although none of them agreed on which tradition it was. It was imperfect in all the right ways. It was mine. As I stepped into my wedding dress, a delicate, hand-beaded gown I had found in a small atelier in Florence, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and froze. Not because I looked beautiful, though I did feel beautiful, but because I looked whole. For the first time, The reflection staring back at me did not look like a daughter on the outside of her own family's orbit. She looked like a woman stepping into her own gravity. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Ava." Ethan's voice drifted through the door. "There is something you should see." I frowned. "You are not supposed to see me before the ceremony." "I will stay outside," he said gently. "But it is important." My stomach fluttered, not in the sweet, wedding day way, but in the way a storm begins at the edge of the horizon. I opened the door. Ethan stood there, shoulders tense, phone in his hand. "It is your parents," he said softly. "They are here." For a moment, I could not process the words. My parents? Here? In Tuscany? The last message I sent them was 2 weeks earlier, a simple photo of the villa, nothing more. I had told no one my wedding date except those invited. And I certainly had not invited my parents. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. "How did they?" I whispered. "Your sister posted something," Ethan said. "Apparently she found her photo and got upset. She told your parents you were trying to overshadow her wedding. They got on the first flight here."
Of course she would twist it that way.
Madeline, the eternal sun. Everyone else, expected to revolve around her. I inhaled slowly. "Where are they now?" "Outside," Ethan said. "They're asking to speak with you." A storm ripped through my chest, but beneath it was something steadier. Stronger. A spine made of stone. "Tell them I will be out in a minute." When I stepped into the courtyard, my parents were standing by the fountain, looking wildly out of place in their travel-wrinkled clothes and panicked expressions. My mother rushed toward me first.
"Ava."
"What are you doing? We thought you postponed your wedding. You said you would consider it." I said nothing of the sort. I replied calmly. My father ran a hand through his hair. "Your sister is in tears. She believes you are trying to compete with her. Why would you do this right before her big day?" I blinked, stunned. Why would I do this? This is my wedding when you ask me to move, shrink, or erase entirely. "Ava, do not be dramatic," my mother snapped. "We just wanted things to be easier." "For whom?" I asked, my voice quiet but sharp enough to split the air. "For the daughter, who demands everything? Or the daughter, who asks for nothing?" They hesitated. And in that hesitation, I found my answer. "You were always so self-sufficient," my father finally said. "We never worried about you." "That is not love," I whispered. "That is convenience." My mother stepped closer. "Well, we are here now. Let us come to the ceremony. Let us fix this." I looked at her, really looked. For years, I had mistaken proximity for love, attention for affection, sacrifice for loyalty. But now, in the quiet Tuscan sunlight, truth crystallized. They had not come out of love. They had come out of fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of the narrative shifting. Fear that their forgotten daughter had found a life where they played no role. "You cannot come," I said softly. My mother gasped. "What do you mean we cannot come? We are your parents. You forfeited that place when you asked me to postpone my wedding so my sister could have the spotlight." "That is not what happened." "It is exactly what happened." My father's eyes narrowed. "If you do this, Ava, you may lose this family." I felt no tremor inside me. No cracking. No fear. I cannot lose something I never truly had. He fell silent. For the first time, they were the ones standing on uncertain ground. My mother reached out, her voice trembling. "Please. We made mistakes. But do not shut us out of your life." I swallowed hard. "I am not shutting you out of my life. I am protecting myself from the parts of you that hurt me." Their shoulders slumped, and I realized something profound. Sometimes forgiveness is not an open door. Sometimes forgiveness is a boundary. I returned to the villa. The moment I stepped inside, my friends enveloped me in warmth, unaware of the emotional storm that had just passed. The ceremony began at sunset. Soft golden light spilled over the courtyard, painting everything in a glow that felt almost holy. The string quartet shifted into the melody Ethan and I had chosen, a song that had followed us through Italy when we first fell in love. When I walked down the aisle, every doubt I had ever carried fell away like petals in the wind. Ethan's face was wet with tears, his smile steady, his love certain. When he took my hands, my heart steadied not because the world was perfect, but because, for the first time, I had chosen myself, chosen my peace, chosen my boundaries, chosen a future not built around earning scraps of affection. And when we said our vows, the sky blazed into colors I still cannot fully describe: pink, amber, violet, like the universe was witnessing a rebirth. Not of us, but of me. As we danced under strands of warm lights, surrounded by people who celebrated without conditions, I felt my phone buzz in my dress pocket. A message from my mother. "It is over between us." My breath caught. Another message followed. "If you shut us out today, do not expect us to be part of your life moving forward." My fingers trembled, but not with fear. I turned off my phone, and I went back to my husband, to my joy, to my new beginning. Some endings look like doors slamming. Others look like doors finally closing on rooms you should have left years ago. This one? It looked like freedom. That night, long after the music softened and the laughter faded into the warm Tuscan air, I found myself alone on the villa balcony. The celebration continued behind me: soft chatter, clinking glasses, the lingering scent of candle wax and roses, but out here, under the quiet Italian sky, everything felt still. I let the cool breeze wash over my face. I let the weight of the day settle into my bones. I was married. I had found peace. And yet, a part of me grieved. Not for the parents who walked away, but for the version of myself who still believed they might one day choose me, without conditions. The girl who waited for permission to feel worthy. The girl who measured herself by the attention she did or did not receive. The girl who thought being easy made her easier to love. I closed my eyes and exhaled. She was gone. And in her place stood the woman I had become. Soft steps approached behind me. "You disappeared," Ethan said gently, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. "Just needed a moment," I whispered. "Are you all right?" I nodded slowly. "For the first time in a long time, I think I am." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. You are not alone anymore, Ava." A tear slipped down my cheek, quiet, almost weightless. Not sadness. Release. "I know," I said. "Thank you for being here. For seeing me. I will always see you." His words felt like warm light settling into all the places inside me that had once been cold. For a brief time, Ethan and I stayed in Tuscany. We had breakfast on the balcony every morning, watched the sunrise paint the hills, walked barefoot through the vineyards, and let silence heal the fractures that conversations never could. My phone remained off. I did not need their messages to know the storm that was brewing back home. My sister's wedding was approaching. The drama would inevitably burst open. Accusations, blame, twisted narratives. I could predict it all, like reruns of a show I had watched too many times before. But something was different now. I no longer felt responsible for fixing anything. One morning, Ethan handed me a small espresso, kissed my shoulder, and asked softly, "Do you want to turn your phone on today?" I thought long and hard. And finally I nodded. But not out of fear. Out of clarity. The moment the screen lit up, dozens of notifications flooded in: calls, messages, voicemails. All from my parents. A few from old acquaintances who had caught wind of the situation. And one very long, very dramatic voice message from my sister. I let them sit there. Unread. Unclaimed. Then, surprisingly, a new number appeared. A short message. "I was at your wedding. I have never seen you look that alive. If they cannot celebrate you, that is their loss. Aunt Lydia." My breath caught. Aunt Lydia, the one relative who had always been gentle with me, who had moved overseas years earlier, who no one thought would come because she disliked family drama. She had come quietly, sat in the back row with tears in her eyes, hugged me before slipping away without a word. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. A reminder that even when the people you want love from cannot give it, there will always be others: unexpected, steady, sincere, who fill those spaces with grace instead of wounds. I replied, "Thank you for coming. It meant more than you know." Her message came back instantly, as if she had been waiting. "You deserve to be loved loudly, Ava." When Ethan and I finally flew home, the tension waiting for us was thick enough to touch. My sister's wedding had passed, and from what friends told me, it had been chaotic. My absence had been the subject of whispers.
My sister had cried.
My parents had tried to control the narrative, but had only made it worse. A few days after we returned, my parents asked to meet. We chose a neutral cafe. When I walked in, they both stood. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed. My father's expression was tight with exhaustion. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother reached across the table. "Ava, we're sorry." I held her gaze. Not coldly, not angrily, just truthfully. "What are you sorry for?" I asked softly. She hesitated. "Not a good sign. For how everything happened." "That is not an apology," I said gently. "That is a description." My father sighed heavily. "Your sister was devastated. She felt humiliated. And I felt erased," I replied. "But no one cared about that until you realized you could lose me." My mother's face crumpled. "We should have been there. We should have chosen differently. I do not know why we thought you could handle everything." "Because you wanted me to," I said. "Because it was easier that way." They fell silent. Then, in a quiet, trembling voice, my father asked, "Can we fix this?" I inhaled deeply. "I do not know yet," I answered honestly. "But I know this. Fixing something does not mean pretending nothing happened. And it does not mean I return to being the daughter who bends until she breaks." They nodded, slowly, reluctantly, but sincerely. Boundaries, I realized, are not walls. They are doors. Doors only open when the other side chooses to knock with respect. "I need time," I said. They accepted it. And for the first time in my life, I felt equal at that table. Months later, Ethan and I moved part-time to Tuscany. My villa became not just a home, but a sanctuary, my rebirth carved into stone. My relationship with my parents did not magically transform. Healing rarely arrives tied neatly with a bow.
But there was awareness now.
Accountability. Effort. And that was enough to begin something new, something slow and tender and cautious. My sister, however, she and I remained distant. Not out of bitterness, but because peace sometimes requires distance, not confrontation. I am learning to accept that. I am learning to accept many things. That sometimes the family we are born into cannot give us the love we deserve. That choosing ourselves is not selfish. It is sacred. That walking away from people who hurt you is an act of love. 2. Love for yourself. And that sometimes the happiest ending is not reconciliation or victory or revenge. It is finally becoming the person you should have been all along, if only someone had protected you sooner. Sometimes that someone
is you.
If you have ever been the overlooked child, the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who never got chosen even when you were standing right there, I want you to hear this. Your worth does not come from how loudly others celebrate you. It comes from how deeply you choose yourself when no one else does. If this story resonated with you, if you saw even a piece of your own life reflected in mine, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone to protect your own peace? And if stories like this help you feel seen, understood, or braver in your own life journey, please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. We share powerful emotional stories every week. Stories of betrayal, resilience, healing, and transformation. Thank you for listening to mine. Thank you for standing with me. And above all, thank you for choosing yourself today.